is 5-year-old Liam Conejo Romas being taken by ICE agents in his family's driveway after getting home from preschool on Tuesday. Now, what exactly led up to this moment is in dispute tonight. Here's what the Department of Homeland Security is saying, that they were targeting the boy's father, who is from Ecuador. But when ICE agents approached them in the driveway, DHS says the dad took off and, quote, fled on foot, abandoning his child. The father was eventually apprehended and both were taken into custody together, the father and the son. The school district released a video of that moment showing the chaotic scene that many people in Minneapolis say has become all too familiar since those 3,000 federal immigration agents have arrived in their city.
What's up, family? So here we go again with the Democrats out here pushing another wild narrative, as you guys can see on the screen, about immigration and ICE. But this time they're using a 5-year-old kid. They should be ashamed of themselves to stir up all the emotions. And honestly, it's disgusting because they're out here saying ICE agents arrested a 5-year-old boy. Like, come on. Let's use some basic common sense here. First of all, ICE didn't roll up to lock up a child. What really happened, they were after the dad. When the dad saw ICE agents coming, he dipped. He ran off on foot. So now you got a 5-year-old sitting there alone. What are agents supposed to do? Just leave the kid in the street? Bro, that's not an arrest. That's called taking custody. The same way cops would do if they arrested any parent. Black, white, legal, illegal, citizen, non-citizen. And if you're with your child and you get arrested, law enforcement can't just leave the kid behind. That's literally their job, to make sure the child is safe. But of course, Democrats spin the whole thing like ICE went out of their way to snatch a 5-year-old just to be cruel. And they know what they're doing because they know a photo of a little boy in the middle of an immigration arrest is going to set people off emotionally. And it's all about the optics, not the facts. And that's how they weaponize feelings over truth, where they're using kids to gain the sentiment of the American people, to lie to them in your face for the simple fact of control and power, because they want to be so against Trump and they want to bash Trump so bad that they're willing to use any American, any situation at the cost of lying and jeopardizing the trust of the American people just to say, oh, we in power again. They're scrambling and scraping. It's desperation. It's no difference from anyone who doesn't like you so much just for being a good person. Even though you're not doing nothing wrong, people could just be around you and hate the aura of you being a good person that you can be, that they want to be. Some people think they could be you better than they could be you. So you ever feel like when someone around you, you didn't do nothing to them, but they have this evil spirit and they out to get you and all you doing is being yourself? Because jealousy and envy come in all forms. It's like the Democrat Party is so envious of Donald Trump. It's the same way of them coming at him and trying to use any narrative they can to make him be as bad as they want to make it out to seem, but he's not. Because the real cruel individuals, the real demonic individuals is the Democratic Party. And every time they keep using children and using any narrative at the cost of Trump derangement syndrome, they should be ashamed of themselves. It's sickening at this point. And it's another story about optics. And that's how they weaponize feelings over truth. And right before we even hear what the Department of Homeland Security had to say, the vice president jumps in with the usual scripted reaction, no context, just vibes. And that's how they weaponize feelings over truth. And Department of Homeland Security has something to say about this, speaking the truth. And also, JD Vance, the vice president, he demolished the fake media, the mainstream liberal media. Let's check it out, family, right about now.
And I see this story, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy. And I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien. And then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense. Now, you know, there are so many of these cases like that where if you just understand the context, there have been a number of situations that I've looked into personally where I say, wait a second. We don't want ICE arresting American citizens. They're supposed to be enforcing the immigration laws against illegal aliens. So then I look into it and I find out that the American citizen who was arrested took a swing at an ICE officer. You can't have that happen. And of course they have to defend themselves. And of course they have the right to detain somebody who assaults a law enforcement officer.
Now, I want to ask the question because this is just common sense here. The Democrats are so busy trying to spew a narrative against Trump that a 5-year-old got detained and ICE just took him off the street and make it so cruel and things like that. But you ever ask, why did the father come in this country illegally and put his child in that position in the first place? Because if you love your child, you wouldn't put your child in a position where now the child is scared because the father is on foot worrying about himself to stay in the country illegally at the detriment of leaving his child just with ICE officers, scared to death because his father just ran for it. Luckily, being heroic and patriotic, the Department of Homeland Security stayed with this child. In this case, the ICE agent stayed with this child to see if he can stay with a guardian in a home or if the father wants to keep him because there's no one else for the child to be with. He stays with his father. So now I want to get you what the Department of Homeland Security had to say in regards to the matter. It says on January 20th, ICE conducted a targeted operation to arrest Adrian Alexander Cajon Erez. As agents approached the driver, Adrian Alexander Cajon Erez fled on foot, abandoning his child for the child's safety. One of our ICE officers remained with the child while the officers apprehended Cajon Erez. Our officers made multiple attempts to get the mother inside the house to take custody of her child. Officers even assured her that they would not take her into custody. She refused to accept custody of the child. The father told officers he wanted the child to remain with him. Our officers' primary concern during the entire operation was the safety and welfare of the child. Following the mother's abandonment of the child, let's emphasize that for the people in the back. Officers abided by the father's wishes to keep the child with him. Father and son are together at Dilley. Parents are asked if they want to be removed with their children, or ICE will place the children with a safe person the parent designates. This is a consistent past administration's immigration enforcement. Parents can take control of their departure and receive a free flight and $2,600 with the CPB Home Act. So there's to tell you, the child had a safe home to go, even though the father left him and put his kid in that place and put him in that position in the first place, where the father was so caught up selfishly to stay in the country illegally that he left his child and ran off and ran foot. Thank God the ICE agent was there. And now the ICE agent was even trying to get them in a stable home to stay in America. And the mother don't want nothing to do with it for her selfish reasons to abandon her own child. Where the father say, put him with me, keeping the family together, and if he has to get deported, his son will be with him in the country. So if that's the case, why didn't you take your son with you and just go illegally? Why didn't you just keep your son in the first place instead of being selfish, running off on foot, leaving your child there at the detriment of his safety? Thank God ICE agents kept the child to make sure they had a safe place to go. You should have just took your accountability, swallowed it, took your child with you, and got with the ICE agent and then deported yourself back anyway, because that's what it all resorted to in the first place. So I blame the father for putting the child in the first place, in that position in the first place. And then the mother want nothing to do with it, unfortunately. Nothing to do with her own child. So now, that tells you right there. You seen what Department of Homeland Security said. Not the viral tweets, not the political spin, but the official statement. And it completely aligns with reality. Not the clickbait narrative that you just seen when I showed you what the Democratic Party posted on X. They straight up said they tried multiple times to get the mother who was inside the house to come out and take her child. Multiple times. And ICE even told her directly, we're not going to take you in custody. They gave her a whole pass. Just take your kid. Refuse. You can't force nobody to take their kid. But if the father who ran off happens to want their kid, then it's best they stay together and they get deported together. They're keeping them together. A mom won't step up. A 5-year-old standing there. Somehow ICE is the bad guy in this. Just stop it. Because at that point, agents did what anyone with a functioning brain would do. Make sure the child stayed with the father like the father asked. So now they both in the facility together. Like, what are we even mad about here? This ain't child snatching. This is making sure a kid isn't left abandoned in a chaotic situation because the father didn't care. He was for himself and the mother clearly for herself. Right? So I don't understand what we're talking about here. Because even Dean Phillips, who's no conservative, by the way, came out and said the truth. He literally said the father abandoned the child. And then when he visited the border before, CPP showed real compassion toward kids in tough situations. Like he said, the boy is in good hands. So when someone who's not even on the Republican side is saying that, what does that tell you? It tells you that the truth doesn't care about party lines. But still, the media wants you emotional, not informed, and that's why they run with these half stories with no context, hoping people don't actually read the full statement. It's manipulation 101. And they count on the fact that you won't go look it up. But now you know this wasn't some ICE horror story. It was a chaotic situation caused by the parents running from responsibility. Let's call it what it is. Dean Phillips proof, family. Since I hate misinformation, I acknowledge the little boy was abandoned by his father who fled ICE agents. I witnessed great compassion from CPB agents towards abandoned children when I visited the southern border a few years ago, and this little boy is in good hands. But what's happening in MSP is a stain on all of us. You know what that mean, right? MSNP, we talking about the Minneapolis State Patrol is a stain on all of us as the rights of Americans are being shredded. In simple words, the state is failing the American people by not upholding safety. ICE agents stepped in and done the right thing. What are you mad for? So just stop with the nonsense. Family, let's move on to the next clip, and I want to show you guys this one.
Attorneys for the family are arguing tonight that they have an active case, an active asylum case, and therefore they are in the country legally. They also say the dad here has no criminal record. And what we do know also from school district officials, as we're still trying to learn more about this, is that Liam is one of 4 of their students who have been detained by ICE in the last few weeks. The school board chair who witnessed Liam's detention today rejected how the vice president justified what happened.
I heard, "What are you doing? Don't take the child." His mom, like, there are people here that can take him. There was another adult who lived in the home that was there saying, "I will take the child. I will take the child." Somebody else was yelling. They saw that I was there and said, "School is here. They can take the child. You don't have to take them." And there was ample opportunity to be able to safely hand that child off to adults. And mom was there. She saw out the window, and dad was yelling, "Please do not open the door. Don't open the door."
If you really listen close, then you caught it. She had to correct herself mid-sentence because the mother never actually said she wanted custody of the child like I told you guys before this clip. Think about that. You got a whole situation unfolding, and the adults in the house, the ones who's supposed to be stepping up, are out here deflecting or straight up refusing, right? And in this case, we know that the mother refused and the child is with their father in the facility, safe and sound, and the father wanted the child because the mother didn't, even though they weren't going to take the mother. And the only reason ICE even had to take the child into custody is because the mom didn't want the little boy. Unfortunately, she didn't want her own son, and the dad ran off. So you got this random adult, right, in the house saying, yeah, they can take him. Like, that's, are you going to leave a 5-year-old with a random person? Just who's ever standing nearby? Be serious. Ask yourself this, ma'am, who just said this in this clip. When's the last time you saw a police officer just leave a 5-year-old kid behind with no legal guardian? You don't. That's not how law enforcement operates, whether it's ICE, local police department, whoever. If the dad gets locked up, the kids stay with the mom. If the mom gets locked up, the kids stay with the dad, right? But if both parents are unavailable, either one runs and the other refuses, then of course the authorities are going to step in and take custody. That's literally what they're supposed to do. But you got folks online acting like ICE just scooped up a kindergartner for fun. It's wild to me. And that is why the whole framing of this story is straight up political. They wanted to make it look like ICE is the villain, when really it's the parents who dropped the ball. And trust me, I got the receipts. Just wait till you see this Democrat Congresswoman emotional reaction video, because it's all about the vibes, none about the facts. And I want you guys to check it out right now.
So now ICE is using a 5-year-old boy. A 5-year-old boy. They took him and used him to lure his father out. And now they've detained them both. The family doesn't know where they are. This is the worst of the damn worst. This is not humanity in Minnesota, folks. If you can look at this 5-year-old and actually with a straight face still support and be silent in the face of what the Trump administration and Kristi Noem is doing, I just can't even believe this is America. I will not vote for a damn penny to Kristi Noem or ICE in this Congress. This is a time where we should all be outraged. If this doesn't pierce through your humanity as a Republican member of Congress, you can't speak out about this, then you've got no humanity left.
I wonder how long it took for her to act that out. See, this is the part where the whole narrative just falls apart. Because if you're going to stand on the humanity soapbox, then let's talk about real inhumanity. Like 18 million people cross the border with zero vetting. Ain't nobody checking who's coming in with what their background is, if they're criminals, nothing. Just wide open borders like it's a summer block party. So let's not pretend y'all care about order or safety or even the kids, because clearly you don't. And if you actually follow the logic all the way through, they start tripping over their own words. It don't even make sense. And that's because it was never about logic. It's about optics, feelings, and pushing agendas. And the truth is, none of these messy situations would even exist if sanctuary city policies weren't shielding people who broke the law. And if we had a president who actually had a backbone to say, yo, borders closed back in the Biden administration, period. But we didn't have that. We had an administration that was too soft, too scared to look mean. And now we're paying the price. And that's why this current administrations have to go all in. And yeah, it looks extreme because the mess is extreme. And they're trying to put out a fire that's been burning for years. But let's be real. Back in the Obama era, it didn't even get this far. You didn't have ICE raiding houses or detaining people in neighborhoods, because back then, folks were getting deported at the border. They never even made it this deep into the country. That's the real difference. But the media won't tell you that one. They want you stuck on emotional footage instead of facts. And speaking of dishonest framing, let's talk about Congresswoman Tina Smith, who's out here straight lying about what happened in this case. Let's see how she spin it. I want you guys to check it out.
You know, what the Department of Homeland Security is arguing is, and this is part of their statement, we read part of it earlier in the introduction, but they said our officers made multiple attempts to get the mother who was inside the house to take custody of her child. They say officers even assured her they would not take her into custody. She refused to accept custody, and the father told officers he wanted the child to remain with him. Do you trust the version of what happened that is coming from the Department of Homeland Security tonight?
It's very hard to trust anything they say when they are routinely breaking the law.
I find that funny because if you really entertain her theory for a second, let's pretend the Department of Homeland Security statement wasn't true. Cool. Even if that were the case, I still didn't do anything outside of their authority. Like, people forgot these agents aren't just pulling up for fun. They had a removal order. That means a court actually looked up at this case, signed off, and said, yeah, this person's got to go. So when ICE shows up, they're not freelancing. They're following legal protocol. And they had a reason. They had intel, and they went to execute an arrest. And that's the job. And the minute they try to do it, people start interfering. Now this is scene, now there's chaos, and guess who gets blamed? ICE. But let's be real here. One of the biggest problems in this country right now is people thinking the best time to resist law enforcement in the middle of a lawful arrest. Like, bro, this isn't a movie. That's not how the legal system works. You don't fight ICE in the street. You fight it in court. You get a lawyer, you show up to your hearing, you challenge it legally. But nah, that's not what the far left wants. They want drama. They want spectacle. They want to make ICE look like stormtroopers just to rile up people emotionally. And meanwhile, the agents are trying to just carry out their job and what they were legally told to do. And it's wild to me. But let's keep pushing, because here were Todd Lyons had to say all about this on Laura Ingraham. I want you guys to check it out right about now.
100%, Laura. You know, I've seen it on all social media, whether it be on X or Instagram, that picture of that poor boy. And I say poor boy because his dad is definitely not the father of the year. And once again, you know, mainstream media and the left has the facts totally wrong and don't listen to us or report what we have to tell them. So the target of this operation was this boy's father. They went to pull the car over, and the father ran. He abandoned that child. So our officers and agents, they stayed behind with that poor 5-year-old who was frightened at the time because his dad just took off and ran. We caught the dad. We took both of them into custody. You know, the dad opted to go and be removed with his son, which is what ICE wants. We want families to return back to their home country on their own, right, together as a family unit. We didn't separate them. We didn't put them in, you know, foster care or anything like that. But again, you know, now we're turning it out that ICE is arresting kids at schools, ICE is arresting kids at daycare, this 5-year-old's left out in the cold. Absolutely not. You know, Father of the Year took off on a foot chase because he did not want to be arrested and go back to his home country.
And that's exactly what happened. And shout out to Todd Lyons. But I want you guys to see something that's the truth that they don't want to tell you about, especially sanctuary cities who sit here and actually prioritize and actually care about criminals more than law-abiding citizens, let alone American taxpayer and American citizen safety. So, see, when you look, right, it says CBS News, out of all places, quietly drops a story saying murder dropping over 20% from the year before. The single largest one-year drop on record in 2025 might be the lowest murder rate in U.S. since 1900, a new study found. If that ain't a round of applause, 1900, bruh? Like, what? But wait, I thought we were in some dystopian police state according to the Democrats. I thought having law enforcement out there was supposed to be terrorizing communities. Nah, what's actually happening is we start enforcing laws. We bring in the National Guard. When you let ICE and federal agents do their jobs, guess what? Crime stats start to fall, right? And streets start to feel safer. And that's not terror, that's accountability. But see, they don't want to talk about that part. They'll never connect the dots because they'll kill the whole defund the police narrative. They've been trying to feed people for years. They'll tell you law enforcement creates chaos, but the data's out here saying the opposite. And that's why Todd Lyons was spot on what I just showed you, because this whole thing is about pulling at your heartstrings and not the truth that the ICE director Todd Lyons just told you in regards of how they enforced the law and made sure that the safety of this child was upheld, while Father of the Year that was supposed to be caring about his child, because as a parent you'll do anything for your child, you'll put your life on the line for your child, but to run away and leave your child with law enforcement officers while you're fleeing to prioritize staying illegal in the United States of America just to stay in this country illegally and leave your child and just darting away like that, all petrified, because the child don't know the officer, just know his father. But if the father is fleeing, the child is 5 years old. Their brain not even developing yet. Still learning right from wrong and deciphering and learning discernment to know what to do and what not to do along the way. Right? So when you look at this, they want you in your feelings, not in the facts. Because if you actually knew what was working, you'll start questioning everything they've been pushing. Right? And that's the cold heart truth. Now, I want you guys to check out this clip next.
Here's a basic illustration of this. If you are an ICE officer and you have to arrest a person who's committed assault and is also an illegal alien, but the state and local officials won't help you identify that person, many of the things that people in Minneapolis are seeing that give them pause, that frustrate them, that worry them, that make them feel like things are too chaotic, many of these things are coming from the fact that there's no cooperation with state and local law enforcement. And I guess what I would tell people, again, many of whom are justifiably concerned and worried about what they're seeing in their communities, is why are we not seeing it anywhere else? We're seeing this level of chaos only in Minneapolis. LA and Chicago, we had some problems there. Pretty much every jurisdiction where these guys are operating, you don't see the same level of chaos. You don't see the same level of violence. You don't see the problems that we're seeing in Minneapolis. Maybe the problem is unique to Minneapolis, and we believe that it is. And it's a lack of cooperation between state and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement.
See, this is exactly why you got to keep talking. We got to keep talking about this, family, because the average people out here is not hearing any of this. That's just the hard truth. If you're not going out of your way to search the other side of the story, like actually looking past whatever got fed to you on Instagram or TikTok, then you're just walking around with completely one side version of reality. And the narrative is so controlled, so filtered that unless you're being intentional, you'll have no idea what's really going on. And what's stuck in most people's heads by the time they lay down at night, oh my goodness, a 5-year-old was detained by ICE. That's it. They don't know the details. They don't care about the facts, just the headline. But here's the truth. The kid wasn't detained like a criminal. He was taken into custody because his dad ran and his mom refused to take him. Like, what did you expect ICE to do? Just leave a 5-year-old on the sidewalk? And now guess what? The dad got caught and the child is with his father together in the ICE facility, which is wildly ironic considering these are the same exact people who have been crying for years about family separation when it comes to the Democratic Party. Individuals saying they're separating families and all these type of things. But y'all said you wanted families together, and this is an example of it. ICE did it. So what you gonna say now? They're not separated as much as they made it out to be, right? So we could just take a second. We got to clap it up for ICE keeping the kid with his parent instead of splitting them up. That's a win-win. But of course, nobody's going to talk about that part because it doesn't fit the narrative. And meanwhile, the chaos is only keep getting worse because guess who's never around when it pops off? Local police. They're nowhere near these riots. And they're not touching immigration enforcement either. In the vacuum, that silence, that's what's making room for all this nonsense to spiral. And then I have one last clip and I want to wrap it up, family. I want you guys to check it out.
What is the situation there? Has it gotten any better over the last couple of weeks? Is it any safer than it was, say, a week or two ago? And then just where are the local media? You know, I worked in local media for 15 years. And where are the local police? We never see them in any video ever.
Yeah, so has it gotten any better? No, it hasn't. I mean, there's something with the liberal white women out here that they're brainwashed or they have some sort of brain-eating disease. I have no idea. It's almost like they're under control of somebody else, and apparently they don't have jobs, or this is their job. It's one of the two. Local police have been told very specifically not to do anything in the vicinity of ICE and Border Patrol, even going down to enforcing traffic laws. That's why you keep seeing people race around school buses at 80 miles an hour trying to chase down ICE vehicles.
Right.
And Minneapolis police just look the other way.
So here's the bottom line, man. The vice president, he said on point what it is in regards of the sanctuary city like Minneapolis. They are basically jeopardizing the safety of everyday Minnesotans and everyday Americans who just want to live their life, take care of their responsibilities, and go about their business because you have these radical left individuals doxing and chasing down ICE agents who's just trying to uphold national security for the sake of the American taxpayer and American citizens for illegals who shouldn't be here in the first place, which is the most anti-American thing to do, I always say. So the mainstream media ain't out here chasing the truth. They're pushing narratives. They don't care about the facts. They care about framing. The people on the ground, the ones putting out the stories, shooting the videos, pushing the content, most of them aren't there to help or inform when it comes to CNN, and it comes to MSNBC, now known as MS Now. They're out there to agitate, to stir people up, to keep folks emotional and distracted. And the politicians, especially the ones on the left, they are not trying to solve problems. They're trying to weaponize every single issue they can for political popularity. And what's get lost in all of this noise is really the definition of humanity, like actually protecting innocent Americans, actually looking out for the country first. But they ain't focused on that, because if they were, they'll have local police working directly with ICE, and they'll be coordinating, sharing information, preventing all this chaos instead of letting it spin out of control. Places like Minneapolis wouldn't be dealing with this level of lawlessness if local departments were actually backing federal enforcement. But nope, that's not what's happening. And until that changes, we're going to keep seeing these manipulated stories, these twisted narratives, and these politicians pretending to care while doing absolutely nothing to fix it. But look, I want to hear you guys' thoughts. When you first saw this story about the 5-year-old boy, what went through your mind? Did you already suspect it was a media spin job? And did you feel it off the jump? Did you feel it was all from the jump? Drop everything you got in the comments. Your take, your reaction, your thoughts, how this all is being played. Let's talk about it. Let the love supersede the hate. Spread the peace, love, and positivity. Catch you in the next one. Peace.